Okay, this is Unit 4, Lesson 4.2a. So in this lesson, we're going to be just looking at objects that are combined with different shapes. So it's multiple shapes creating one object. However, you don't initially see the shapes inside. Sometimes you need to divide them up. So what we're going to do is we are going to find the area of the entire shape sometimes and subtract the smaller pieces. So in the first example, there's two ways to do it. And so that's why it's written twice in our notes here. So if we do it twice, it looks like this. So the first time I'm going to do it, I'm going to cut this object right here. I'm going to cut it right there like that. So I need to know what those other numbers are. So I know what this number is here. It's a 7 going left to right. So if this number here is a 7, that means this plus this must be a 7. And I know I've got 4 of it. So if I have 4, how do I get to 7? We would add 3. So that means this piece is a 3. So this is an actual square. It's a 3 by 3 square. Now I need to know the bottom number. So if I know part of this number, so if we look at this part here, this whole side adds to 8. Well, that means this 3 plus something down here needs to add to 8. So what would the bottom plus 3 make 8? So what plus 3 makes me 8? 5. So now I have two objects. I've got a large object and a small object. So shape 1 is my large, shape 2 is my small. So this is a rectangle. So area of a rectangle is length times width. I'm going to go 7 times 5 to give me 35 meters squared. Okay, we got to put our units. Our units tell us that it is squared. Tegan, open it up.
Oh, yeah. And would you just add the other square like the 9?
Yep. And now the small square, our square here, again, is going to be length times width. 3 times 3 is going to be 9 meters squared. So now our total area is going to be to add them up. So our total area is going to be 35 plus 9 to give us 44 meters squared. So our answer is 44 meters squared. Now, we know that by separating it into a large object and a small object. Well, there's even another way to do this question. So the other way to do this question is to create a large shape and subtract a small one. So we're going to have a large and a small again, but in this case, we're going to subtract. In the first one, we notice we have to add the numbers, and in the second case, we're going to be subtracting. I'll give you a minute to finish writing that down. Okay, so now on this shape, instead, I can do this. I can take the large shape and make it into one large rectangle. Then I can take this small rectangle here and subtract it. So what we're doing is we're creating a larger object, and that other part that was missing, that's the part we're going to subtract. So the large one is going to give me length times width again for area. And I'm going to get 8 times 7. So that's going to give me 56. So I'm going to get 56 meters squared. Now I would do the small object. The small one is that little yellow rectangle that we added on. So that little yellow rectangle, try saying that 5 times, has the dimensions 3 and 4. So we're going to take length times width for our area. So area is going to be 3 times 4 is going to be 12. So we get 12 meters squared. So our total area in this case, we have to subtract because we had a large object and we subtract the small. So that's going to give us 44. So we get the same answer no matter which way we do it. So when there's questions on your assignment and on quizzes, when it asks you to do a question like this, it doesn't matter which way you choose to do it. You're still going to get the exact same answers. Okay? All right, let's move on down to the next one. On the bottom of the page, This is a floor plan. All of those little 1 ticks, so these little ticks I'm talking about right here, these 1 ticks, that means that they all are the same length. That's what those indicate. So what you should do is you should label the rest of your diagram. Okay, so on this object here, the easiest way to do this is to write all the other unknowns on it. So I know this is 11 and this is 11. So if I wanted to find the whole bottom line, it would be 11 plus 11 plus 11. So the bottom line is going to be 33 millimeters. This number over here is supposed to be a 15. The 1's kind of cut off, but it's supposed to be a 15. So in this object, it makes more sense to make it into one large rectangle and then subtract that small one on the inside. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So we're going to make it into a large rectangle. So shape 1 is going to be the large one. Shape 2 is going to be the small one. The large one is going to be a 33 times 15, length times width. So my area, length times width, 33 times 15. It's a big number, 3 digits. 495. So I get 495. So shape 1, 495 millimeters squared. Now my small object, that's going to be this little one on the inside here. Okay, it's going to be that guy right there. And it's still a rectangle. The one line is 9, the other one is 11. So this guy is going to be area 11 times 9. So the area here is going to be 99 millimeters squared. Now, did I add something to the object, or do I have to subtract something? Which kind of situation is this one? Is it an adding one or a subtracting one? It's a subtract because I included this spot and that spot doesn't exist on the original diagram. So that means I have to subtract that spot that I included. So our total area will be to take our big one, and this time we're subtracting. So what we should notice now is this one is a subtract situation, okay, because I added that extra spot in there. Okay, go ahead, Carly, and then Cameron when Carly gets back. All right, so we take 495 and we subtract 99. 495 and we subtract 99. You're welcome. And that is going to be 396. So we get 396 millimeters squared. We get 396. Okay? So when we look at a question like this is a really odd looking object. So what you do is you divide it into the shapes you see. So this guy looks like he has a triangle there. So we have a triangle and a rectangle. So that's exactly what we are going to measure out. So we have a rectangle and a triangle. So area of a rectangle is always length times width for area. So of my big rectangle, I have 17 times 10. So my area will be 170 inches squared. So you could write it inches squared or square inch. So 170, and I'm going to write it square inch. Square inch. Okay, remember you can do it 2 ways. So you can write it this way as square inch, or you could write it as inches squared. Okay, preferably the top way, squared inch, but it really doesn't matter to me. All right, now we're doing a triangle. Whenever you're doing a triangle, the base and the height are attached to the 90. So that means I want this number right here. Okay, well, if I need that number right there, they're going to give me information to find that number. And what I have to do is I have to use the Pythagorean theorem. So take a look. If this number right here is a 13, that guy's got to be a 4. So I can find x. So I'm going to go 7 squared subtract 4 squared. That's going to give me x. after I square root it. And you can put it all under the square root sign in one step. Oh, well, that's right. Sorry, that's a 10C thing. You guys don't have to worry about that. The 7's in the wrong spot. That's what's wrong. The 7 should be there. Because I'm like, they don't show you guys those things till later. That's Unit 6. That was a Unit 6 and Unit 4. No, thank you. So the 7 was in the wrong spot. That was a typing error. So the 7 has to be on there. Now, the reason for it is because we need to have the 90 attached is our base and height. So the numbers that are attached to that 90, this little square, those are the numbers we multiply. So I'm going to use 4 times 7. And remember, with triangles, we got to divide it by 2. So we take length times width, or we call it base times height. Then we divide that answer by 2. So I'm going to get 28 divided by 2 is going to give me 14. So this one, whoa, it just jumped on me, is 14 squared inch. So now I've got 170 square inches and 14 square inches. How do I find my total in this case? Am I going to subtract or add? What do you think?
I'm going to take a guess and say add.
You are correct. So we're going to take 170 plus 14. So our total is going to be 184 square inch. So 184 square inches. All right, the guy below him is similar, but there's a chunk cut off. So this time, instead of adding a triangle, I have to subtract a triangle. So this guy, we can put a triangle there, and we use a triangle there. But on the previous question, we added. This time, we're going to subtract it because I had to draw it on there. So on this one, 39 subtract 26 gives me a 13, and 18 subtract 4 gives me 14. So that tells me my numbers on my base and my height. So shape 1 is going to be the large rectangle. Large rectangle. So I'm going to go length times width. So I'm going to get 18 times 39.
12 grand. Yeah.
Again. So we're going to take 18 times our 39, and that's going to give us 702. So our first large object is 702 meters squared. Shape 2 is going to be a triangle, which is going to be base times height divided by 2. So dividing 2. So my base is 13, my height is 14. So 13 times 14 divide 2. So our triangle is going to give us 91. So we get 91 from our triangle meters squared. On our total, on this one, we're going to have to subtract. So we're going to get 702 subtract 91. So the grand total will be 611. So 611 meters squared. All right, moving on up. The next one, I've got 2 pieces cut out of a rectangle. So what I'm going to do with those 2 pieces cut out of a rectangle is I'm going to just make one big rectangle and then have two little pieces I subtract. So I'm going to make this guy closed in, and I'm going to close that guy in. So I'm going to call this shape 1, 2, and 3. So shape 1 is going to be our large rectangle. So area is length times width, and that's going to be our large rectangle. Then we're going to have our medium rectangle and our small rectangle, the mini one. And again, they're all length times width because it's all area of a rectangle. Area of a rectangle. So now the dimensions. If I look at the dimensions of the large object, I'm going to have 13 plus 2 makes a 15 on this side. So 15 times 23. Now, where did that 23 come from? It's going to be my 8, and 8 is 16. And this guy here, where did I get 23 from? That guy is 18 plus 5. The 5 right there and the 18. So that tells me 18 and 5 make 23. So the whole long side, edge to edge here, is 23. That makes this little guy in here a 7. Because 23 subtract 16 is 7. So now, on this large rectangle, I'm going to get 345. So I get 345 centimeters squared. The medium one is this guy right here that I'm going to color in yellow. That's our medium guy. That's the medium. So we're going to have 7 times 6 to give us 42. So I have 42 centimeters squared. And then shape 3. Shape 3 is that tiny little rectangle in the bottom corner. So this little one right down there. So my length and width for that guy is a 5 times 2, which is going to give me 10. So 10 centimeters squared. So my total on this one, my total is going to be the large objects subtract the 2 smaller objects. So it's going to be 345, subtract 42, and subtract 10. And that's going to give us 293. Here we go. So on this object, we're going to do the exact same thing in terms of creating a larger object and then subtracting the 2 smaller objects. So I've got another little rectangle here that I can subtract, and then I've got a triangle on the corner there I can subtract. So in order to find those, we have to create our numbers. So if I know the top is 21, the whole bottom has to add to 21. Well, so far, this is 10. That's 7 more, that's 17, and I need to get to 21. So that bottom line is going to be a 4 because that'll make me a 21. Now I need to figure out up and down. Well, up and down, if I look, I've got 8 plus 8 is 16. So this whole side is 16. That means the left side has to be 16. So that means up and down, that's a 6. So we've got 10 and 6. And no, these diagrams are not drawn to scale because it looks like the 4 one is longer than the 6. And yes, the diagram looks that way, but it's just off. That's all it is.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so now we're going to go with all these objects. So the first one is going to be our large rectangle, which is length times width. Then we're going to have our small rectangle, which is length times width. And then we're going to have our triangle, which is base times height, divide 2. Okay. I'm just going to put a line there for the next question. So on the first one, the large rectangle, I'm going to have 16 times 21. That is my length and my width. 16 times 21. That's going to give me 336 squared inches. So 336 square inch. All right. The shape 2 is our small rectangle. That's going to give me a 10 times 8. That's going to give me 80. So my small one is 80 square inch. And then my triangle, my base and my height are attached to that 90. Every corner makes a 90. So that means my 6 and my 4 are the ones that are next. So I take 6 times 4, divide 2. So 24 divide 2 gives us 12. So I get 12 squared inches. So now my total area because we added objects, we added lines, that means we have to subtract. So our total is our large object, 336, subtract the two smaller ones, subtract 80 and subtract 12. And that's going to give us our large number for what's left over. So we're going to get 224 square inches. Okay, for this next question, we have a half of a circle and a triangle. So we have a shape 1 is a triangle, shape 2 is a circle divided by 2 because it's only a half circle. So our triangle is going to be base times height divided by 2. So that's going to give me our base for our triangle is the whole bottom line. The height is the vertical height shown right here. Okay, that's that pink line. So we're going to have 9.2 times 18.3. So 9.2 times 18.3. And then divide that sucker by 2. That's going to give us 84.2. So the first one, 84.2. And that's in millimeters squared. With this area unit, you do need to have the units on it. That's the whole point of this unit, is deciphering the units. Okay, the next one's a half circle. So we're going to take area of a circle, which is r squared times pi. That's how we put it in our calculator. And then we're going to divide 2. Okay, so we're going to go r squared times pi. That's our area of a circle. And then divide 2 because we only have a half circle. So we know all the way across. All the way across is 18.3. I need to know half. What would half of that be? Well, you're going to divide that 18.3 by 2. And that becomes our radius. So our radius number becomes 9.15. And you don't round that to 9.2. You use those numbers on the end. It's 9.15. You use all those digits. So my radius, 9.15 squared times pi divide 2 equals. That's what you're putting into the calculator. So make sure you write down the calculator steps because there's a lot of steps that if you've got an answer key to the notes, those aren't written there. The calculator steps aren't written there. So you got to write those down. So that is going to be 131.5. So I'm going to get 131.5 millimeters squared. Now, am I going to be subtracting or adding in this situation?
Subtracting. Just joking.
Well, did I make a bigger circle and then subtract these little pieces, or did I take two objects and add them?
I don't know.
I have to add them together because I have a triangle stuck on half of a circle. So since you have a triangle stuck on top of another object, you have to take each separate object. So we're going to add in this case. So we're going to have 84.2 plus 131.5. That's going to be our total area. And that's going to give us a total of 215.7. And our units, don't forget, millimeters squared. So we're going to get 215.7. I'm just drawing the line for the next question. So we separate our work. All right, 2 ways to do the next question. So on the next question, you can either chop it right here and have 2 objects, a rectangle and a triangle, or you can do this. You could create a bigger object out the outside and subtract these 2 circles. or two triangles. So we can either do adding or subtracting. Both will get you the same answer. I'm going to go with adding. So what I'm going to do then is I'm not going to create those extra parts. I'm just going to go down the middle. So I'm going to do it this way. This is my base of my triangle. Okay, that's my base. And now I need the height. How do I find that height number? How do you find the height number? There's two numbers there that are going to help you. I'm going to highlight them and let's see what they're going to do. So we have this length right here all the way to the edge, and then I have this length right here. How am I going to find out what the height could be? How could you find that height number? What do you notice they have to match? 13 plus the height have to equal 19. So 13 plus the height right here equal the full length of 19. So 13 plus what gives us 19? 6. So that means our height is 6. So shape 1 is going to be a rectangle, and it's going to be length times width. We are going to go 8 times 13. And that's going to give us 104. Shape 2, so 104, and that's squared inches. And now I got to do the other piece. So I've got to do my triangle. And my triangle is base times height, divide 2. My base and height are 8 times 6, divide 2. Well, that's going to give me 48 divide 2 is 24 squared inches. So now we're going to take and we're going to add. So for total area, I got to add them together. I'm going to take 104 and add 24. So I'm going to get 128 squared inches. Okay, I'll give you a minute to finish writing that down. $2.45. Okay. So we have 4 objects here. We have 3 different shapes, 4 objects. So in this specific case, we've got a triangle. We have a triangle, a half a circle. So it's a circle divided by 2. Oh, it's a terrible circle drawing. So a circle divided by 2, and then we've got a rectangle. So we have to find the dimensions. So we need, for our triangle, we need base times height divide 2. That's going to give me 4.2 times 8.4, all divided by 2. So area of the triangle. Area of the triangle. $17.64. Now we have 2 triangles. So we got to times that by 2 triangles. So that's going to give us 35.28. So 35.28 squared feet. Okay, so that's our triangles. We took care of both of them. Now we're going to do the circle. So this guy's called the diameter. Okay, that's our diameter of our circle. So our diameter is 18.3. Our radius is half of that. I got to divide it by 2. So my radius is going to be 9.15. So on my circle is radius squared times pi divide 2. My radius is 9.15 squared times pi divide 2. Because we cut that circle in half. It's only a semicircle. So that's going to give us 131.5. So 131.5 squared feet. Now we've got that lovely rectangle right in the middle that everything is attached to. So that rectangle, length times width, is going to give me 8.4 times 18.3. And that's going to give me 153.7. And that's going to be squared feet. Now on this object, we didn't create a larger object and have to subtract things. Here we've got 4 different pieces we have to add together. So we are literally going to add everything up. So our total equals shape 1 plus 2 plus 3. So I'm going to have 35.28 plus 131.5 plus 153.7. And that's our total area, which is going to be 320.5 squared feet. So 320.5 squared feet. That 3 looks a little silly there. There we go. Okay, that was our second last example. We have our last example right now. So this one's got 3 different objects. So we've got a triangle, we have a rectangle, and we have a circle, but it's a quarter of a circle. So it's going to be a circle divided by 4. Okay, so it's a quarter of a circle. So we're going to start with our triangle. This number right here is, let me just find it. I want to make sure I have my dimensions correct. Okay, so this line right here is 9.8. So this guy here is 9.8. The 11.1, this number here, the 11.1 is that line right there. Okay, that's what that 11.1 is. Okay, so we have a base times height. So 9.8 times 10 divide 2. That's going to give me 98 divide 2 is going to give me 49. So 49 square yards. The rectangle, my rectangle, length times width, is going to give me 21.2 times 9.8. And that's going to give me 207.8 for the rectangle. 207.8 for the rectangle. And that's squared yards. And our last shape, we need the radius of our shape. And the radius it's showing us is this one right here. So that line there is that 10, that's our radius. That's R. So area of our circle is going to be R squared times pi but now it's a quarter of a circle, so it's going to be divide 4. So my R is 10.1 squared times pi divide 4. Okay, and that's going to give us a grand total of 80.1. 80.1 square yards. So our total is going to be to add them together. So I'm going to get 49 plus 207.8 plus 80.1. And that's going to give us a grand total of 336.9. And that's squared yards. So don't forget to put your units. This concludes lesson 2A.